Hello everybody, and welcome to Escape to Books. My name is Sarah, and this is a very different video than what I thought I was going to be putting out today. I was working on an all my 5-star reads of 2023 video, and realized I kept saying the same thing. I have a dedicated video for this book in my channel below, and I really didn't want a rinse and repeat video, so I've decided to back up and look at what I could be putting out that wasn't that. Now, while I do still have some videos for the books I'm going to be putting in this video, it is 2 out of the 5 books. So now, my video is the top 5 books I read in 2023 instead of, all the 5-star reads in 2023. This is going to be a much shorter video, and while I will mention the videos that I have for dedicated reads, it will not be as rinse and repeat. So we're going to start on 5 of 5, and the book to take that spot is The Passage by Justin Cronin. This isn't just a standalone, this was a trilogy. The first 2 books for me were 5-star reads, and the third book was a 4-star read. I do have a dedicated video for, and if you would like to check that out, please feel free. I have no spoilers, I just kind of, in my own words, tell you what the books are about to pique your interests. I have Goodreads pulled up on my phone here, and I was going to read a short blurb. So, The Passage by Justin Cronin. Alright, I will not read the whole blurb, I'm just going to read the first 2 prequels that they have here in Goodreads. It happened fast. 32 minutes for one world to die and another to be born. First, the unthinkable. A security breach at a secret U.S. government facility unleashes the monstrous product of a chilling military experiment. Then, the unspeakable. A night of chaos and carnage gives way to sunrise on a nation, and ultimately a world forever altered. All that remains for the stunning survivors is the long night, is the long fight ahead, and a future ruled by fear, of darkness, of death, and of a fate far worse. There is more to the blurb, but it is a little lengthy, so I will leave it there, as I do have a dedicated video, as I said, for this series that I put in my own words. If you would like to check that out, please feel free to do so. This is a interesting take on vampires, what would happen if they could completely rule the world, and how such a thing goes down in short format. It's a pretty detailed series. It is a little on the long side. If you want to listen to the audiobooks, they are anywhere from, I think, 25 to 36 hours long. These were the longest ones that I had listened to so far. I did listen to all the series, and I immersion reread part of the series. I believe the first book I read, and then I listened to it again. The second book I strictly listened to, and the third book I did a little bit of both. The character work in this book is really good. You get to see a lot of lineage in this book because it is through different time periods within the world, which was interesting. I don't really want to say more than that, but this is in the top tier for my year. The next book I have was a recent read, and it is Gothic by Philip Fracassi, or Fracassi. I'm not exactly sure how to say his last name. This is a horror book for adults. I will say that much. I listened to this book on audio. It is not overly long. The audio was amazing, and I would highly recommend the audiobook. And it's not that this book is overly terrifying. It's the content that got to me. I found myself absolutely appalled by certain scenes. I found myself disgusted. I laughed out loud to some of the exploits. I cringed. I was absolutely disgusted. And for me, that is pretty interesting. This is an author that I hope to get to more of. And I do have more of his books saved in my TBR. There is a little bit of this book that kind of reminded me of The Shining, which is always a pretty high praise, I think. And this was fun. This was one of the few horrors that I read this year, and it absolutely belongs in this list. Once again, I'm not going to read the full blurb, but I think I want to read a little bit of this blurb to you. And since I do not have a dedicated review for this book, I thought it would be a good time. So, on his 59th birthday, Tyson Parks, a famous but struggling horror writer, receives an ornate antiquarian desk, in the hopes it will rekindle his creative juices, perhaps inspire him to write another best-selling book and prove his best years are behind him. As Tyson begins to use the desk, he finds himself writing copy at an unfathomable speed, becomes so focused on writing that he binges on all-night, all-day sessions that take a serious physical and psychological toll. Soon, Tyson begins acting strange, violent. So this is from a few perspectives. Our main character here, another character that is mentioned in the blurb, and his wife. There's some perspective from his daughter, and there's some perspective from something a little darker. This is not hack and slash horror, which is kind of what I lean towards when I do read a horror, but nevertheless, it made it to the 4th spot of my top 5 books of the year. In slot 3, and with a very nice cover, we have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This was my first book with this author, and I will gladly say a very welcomed first book. It is, I believe, part of a series right now. The next book comes out soon, which I will definitely be grabbing as soon as I can and taking a peek at that. This was a retelling that I didn't know was a retelling until much later. And as someone who hasn't read a lot of classics, I have been dipping my toe into those this year, but this is based off the Edgar Allan Poe's classic, The Fall of the House of Usher, which I knew nothing about. So if you haven't read Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, I would say maybe pick this up as an introduction to it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I loved the creepy vibes. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the way the story was told. There was a lot about this book that was awesome, and I can't wait till this next book comes out. I, once again, will read a little bit of the blurb here. This one's a little bit on the shorter side, so I think I'll read the whole thing. When Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that the childhood friend Madeline Usher is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruravia. I think it's Ruravia, maybe. When they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake, Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night. Her brother Roderick is consumed with the mysterious malady of the nerves. Aided by a redoubtable British mycologist and a baffling American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. Now, this was a pretty short read. Once again, I listened to this on audio. But I will be getting a physical copy as soon as I have a library to put it. And I am going to look into reading more of T. Kingfisher's works. There is quite a list to look at, and I'm excited to get into more of her works this next year. So my top 2 spot was a book that I read as a read-along within the Library of Alexandria's channel. It was the first read-along of the year for me, and I did not move on to the second book. I plan on doing that this year and getting back into the series. This is from the Asian series Saga, so you might be able to guess what this is. Shogun by James Clavell. I have not yet got to the movie. I believe was filmed in the 70s. I think it's a mini movie type series. I'm hoping to eventually find that and watch that movie as well. I believe that there is a newer production for, I don't know if it's the whole saga, but I do believe it is for Shogun first. I have seen a trailer for it, and it looks great. But I want to watch the old one first and get back into the whole series as a whole. So, let's talk about Shogun. So I'll read the first bit of the blurb for you that's here on Goodreads. If you haven't read it before, if you're into Asian folklore, samurai, if you're into political intrigue, if you're into just great character building, this is a great first book for you. This is a chonker. This was my first big chonker of the year, and I am excited to hopefully put my prejudice aside from the first book and be able to move forward into the second book. So the blurb for Shogun is as follows. After Englishman John Blackthorne is lost at sea, he awakens in a place few Europeans know of and even fewer have seen, Nippon. Thrust into the close society that is 17th century Japan, a land where the line between life and death is razor thin. Blackthorne must negotiate not only a foreign people with unknown customs and language, but also his own definitions of morality, truth, and freedom. As internal political strife and a clash of cultures lead to seemingly inevitable conflict, Blackthorne's loyalty and strength of character are tested by both passion and loss, and he is torn between two worlds that will each be forever changed. What I liked most about this series was Blackthorne's journey, his ability to step back and look at his own community and how he perceives the world, and put himself in the shoes of this new culture that is completely different from his own, and to really embrace this new culture and how it changes him and his views on the world and how it changes him as a person. His journey is a very cool, timepiece, and I'm excited to get back into the series this coming year, and I'm not 100% yet if it's going to be part of a read-along with anybody. I have had some whisperings from other YouTubers about them getting into the next part of the series, so I'm not sure yet. But if you want a saga with action, adventure, political intrigue, and everything that that entails, please pick up Shogun and tell me what your thoughts are. Now for my top spot of 2023, it goes to a rather small book, a book that I do have a dedicated video for on my channel if you would like to check it out. It is Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now you may be asking yourself, how can a book with less than 200 pages trump a book like Shogun in such a short span of time? And I will say, I guess you're going to have to find out for yourself. So let's read the blurb together. This is a short one, so I'll probably read the whole thing. Ogres are bigger than you. Ogres are stronger than you. Ogres rule the world. It's always idyllic in the village until the landlord comes to call. Because the landlord is an ogre, and ogres rule the world with their size and strength and appetites. It's always been that way. It's the natural order of the world, and they only eat people sometimes. But when the headman's son, Torkel, dares lift his hand against the landlord's son, he sets himself on a path to learn the terrible truth about the ogres, and about the dark sciences that ensure their rule. Now honestly, I went into this blind. I really wanted to get into Adrian Tchaikovsky's works. I wanted to find a smaller book that was a standalone. Now after I read this and loved it, I found out that it is indeed part of a series, but that series is not numbered. So there is no real order to this series. I think you can read it in whatever order you wish, which was a good thing. For me, as I have yet to find the other two books. Tchaikovsky really steps it up with the twists in this book. He can somehow take your perception and change it multiple times within very few words. This is maybe not a deep thinker book, but it is a wild ride, and this book covers a lot of, I guess it could be heavy topics depending on your perspective. So you have the topic of slavery, of what is human nature. You have maybe what starts and ends a rebellion. You have looks at excess, wealth, and poverty, and how those things get started. You have what makes great leadership. You have things like greed and how to control a populace. There is a lot of stuff in this book for as small as it is. But that is mostly why this series was #1 for me. I think about this book all the time, and it's definitely gonna be a series that I hopefully find the rest of soon, and one that I am able to tout as a favorite author as well. Adrian Tchaikovsky, while I have been able to read at least one other of his works this year within an omnibus, and while that was okay, it was not within the same realm as Ogres, and I was truly floored by this book, and I hope you will give it a shot. Like I said, it is less than 200 pages, so not much of a lose there, and for me it was almost a one-sitting read. Like, I couldn't put it down. What are your top 5 books of the year? Would you agree with some of mine? Have you read any of my top 5s? Would you like to read any of my top 5s? And would you like to join me for a Taipan read-along? I hope to see you here on my YouTube channel, in my Instagram, Discord, and Goodreads. All the links are within my channel. I'm going to maybe play with putting them also in the description below if I can figure that out today. And until next time, let's continue reading.